What's up everybody, D-Man back, welcome to a brand new video, and today we're going to be doing something a little different. Today I will be opening the Super 7 Baragon. Today, I'm gonna hope to find out whether or not Super 7's main figure line is worth it. Super 7 is a newer brand in the Godzilla toy space, at least as of the past couple years they have been around, and they've been doing a really good job making figures that are very obscure and niche, such as a Baragon 1968. The reason I got him in particular is because Playmates also did a Baragon 1968, it just didn't release wide enough for me to be able to get it, and in fact, when I've looked for it online, I haven't even really found people selling it online. So I wanted to get a Super 7 figure because I wanted to find out kind of how I feel about them, and I also wanted to get a Baragon because I missed out on the Playmates Baragon. This is of course the Baragon from Destroy All Monsters, one of my favorite Godzilla films, so it's cool to have him, and maybe if I like it I'll try and start grabbing some of the other figures they have that go along with that Destroy All Monsters-y set. Maybe I'll try and assemble it. The thing that holds me back on getting these Super 7 figures is the price. This figure right here, this tiny little piece of plastic, this was $21. That was the price that NECA was going for back in the day, and I just don't really see the value being comparable between the two brands. But I wanted to find out, and so here we are. We're gonna find out together. Starting out with the box work, I really love it. I think that they've got a cool little Godzilla logo. I like that they put the artistic renderings of the character that is being sold in the packaging on the box. I like that it's not just the same generic Godzilla over and over again. The back of the box is really neat. It's got a big lineup of all of their releases, waves 1 through 4, and so you can see all the figures that they've done, and so you can get a sense of where they're headed. I also know they do special color versions of a lot of their figures. Well, without further ado, let's get this guy open. Got him! He's gone, he's free, and here he is. He's a tiny little guy. Like I said, these are small toys. They're small little action figures, and I would have loved this so much as a kid, having a bunch of these little guys that I could have fight each other. The odd thing is, this is a scale that I don't really have any other Godzilla figures in. It's bigger than the Destruction City ones, but smaller than your standard Godzilla toys. I believe these are made at about the 3-inch scale, so it's going to be about half the size of your Bandai's. It's a little more reminiscent of things like Jakks Pacific and Playmates than Bandai, I suppose, in that it's a much harder plastic than the Bandai's. Starting out with the sculpt, he's not the most accurate, and they're not trying to make him be the most accurate. He's got a very stylistic design, very cutesy, and it is adorable. It is a cute little art style that they do these in, but I do think they've done a good job. He looks cute. I like the horn on his head. It sticks out very nice. The ears look great. He's got the nice Baragon body. I especially like the back. Baragon's got such a unique back, and there was a reason that it was always noticeable whenever they reused that suit for Ultraman. He can kind of sort of sit on all fours and crawl around the way the Baragon does in the movies, but he's definitely made to be standing with the rest of your figures, so he's not really made to crawl around that way. They've done a good job with the sculpt. As far as the paint goes, it's pretty solid. Got a nice brown body overall. Looks very Showa Baragon, which I like. The ears, the horn, the nails, and then the back all have this very nice yellowish color, this dirtyish yellow kind of brown. That looks great as well. They've done a good job painting each individual one of Baragon's back spikes, and they also have a really cool way that it kind of fades into brown, but not the same brown as the back. That's a really neat detail that I really appreciate. The teeth are painted on pretty good. The eyes are painted pretty well. He's looking the right direction, and that's always a bonus. As far as the articulation goes, like I said, it's a little bit comparable to like your Bandai's or your Jakks Pacifics and stuff, so the legs can kick out. Got a pretty decent range of motion with the legs. The tail spins around. The arms can do little spins as well, and then finally the head can do a little spin. In total, that's 6 points of articulation. The closest thing I have to compare him to is, I believe this is the Bandai Creations Anguirus from 2004, and Anguirus just towers over him, way bigger, way longer, at least double the size. I mean, Anguirus has that tail too, so he's even longer. But that's the most Baragon-like monster I have. I don't really have many Anguiruses, and I don't really have many Baragons. It was between getting this guy or Anguirus 1955, and I went with this guy for the reasons I said at the top. Here he is next to the Bandai Godzilla 1968. Figured that was a good one to pull because they're both Destroy All Monsters, and poor little Baragon's just so small. Godzilla can just pick him up and grip him by the neck. Poor little guy never stood a shot. Ah! Here's the Jakks Pacific Rodan from 2019. These are on a much more similar scale. Obviously, they're not to scale with each other because Rodan would be a little bigger, but these are in a similar playing scale, so at least if you're a kid who gets these toys, this is at least a fair fight. Having a smaller Rodan who's in about the 3-inch scale fighting the Baragon. Who would win that fight? You comment below and let me know. I think it'd be Rodan. Now, this isn't the first Super 7 I've ever gotten, it's just the first one that I've ever gotten for more traditional reasons. I do have this one, which is a mini recreation of the Shogun Warriors Godzilla, equipped with the little fire tongue. This one is obviously a special color variant, but you can see they scale nicely together. This one feels like a collector's item, and this one feels like a toy, which I like. But there they are together. And then I do have Godzilla 1954, but I specifically got him for the Oxygen Destroyer, not the Godzilla himself. And there you can see the two of them next to each other, and these guys actually look pretty good together. And so there you have it. Even having him out and looking at him, and they have done a good job. He's got generally good texturing on him. There's some smooth areas, but things like the legs, the arms, and the back really shine. The chest looks okay. The side of the body is a little smooth, but that's so that you can articulate a little easier. They've done a good job with the sculpt overall. He's got decent articulation. The paint is very nice. It's just the scale and the price. I don't think a toy this small should be running you $21, and I don't know where that price comes from. Maybe it comes from just the fact that they have to build these sculpts from the ground up. Licensing the characters is expensive. Maybe the materials that Super 7 uses to make these things, it runs them a little more than it does a company like Bandai or Playmates. But I do feel that this toy, being as small as it is, should probably be more about half the price, about $10, especially considering you can get the Playmates Godzilla toys, which are of similar quality, for $10, and especially in Japan, those Bandai Godzilla figures in Japan particularly go for very, very cheap. On the US market, the Bandais are a little more expensive, but in Japan, they're very cheap. So ultimately, would I say he's worth it? I don't personally think so, even though I actually really rather like this toy. I think that this is a good one, and I would love to start collecting these smaller Super 7 toys because I do think they're very awesome, and I love that they're constantly doing new stuff. It's just that price, $21 for something this small. For the price of a couple of these, you could just save up and buy yourself a Monster Arts, you know? If these things were more in the $10 range, I bet I would have a ton of them. So for now, I think I might just play it safe and only grab the very rare few here and there, even though I will give this guy an 8 out of 10. I think they've done a very good job with him. The only thing is that I just generally prefer toys to look a little more movie accurate than stylistic, and also the scaling issue. It'd be hard to play with other toys that aren't specifically these Super 7s. Like, you can play with these guys together fairly easy. But you know, it's a little harder to do this matchup. Ultimately, for me, that doesn't matter too much because it'll go on a shelf anyways, but I do think that is an important factor when it comes to toys. I used to be driven crazy by the scaling issues with my toys. There's the Super 7 Baragon. Do you have any of the Super 7 figures? If so, come below and let me know which ones you have. What would you be willing to spend on these Super 7s? I think I'd be anywhere from ideally $7, anywhere to $12 I think would be pretty reasonable for these guys. I do think the money could be spent on other toys and it could go to different things. As always, I want to give a huge thank you to my patrons over on Patreon. If you want to check out the Patreon, you can use the link in the description below where you can get early access to content, access to the Discord community, and more. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I will see you all next time for the next one. D-Man out.